What's up, guys? This is Tommy Gunn. Get out there and get my book, Tommy Gunn's Unloaded. And you can find that on tommygunn.com. Don't forget, you're watching John the Ninja.
All right, breaking character. Ladies and gentlemen, how you doing today? It is John the Ninja live in the studio. AA, New Jersey, exit 4, Cherry Hill, stand up. Let's go. Listen, I even got to break out my head. Thank you, Cameron. Thank you, Zach. Because you know I got that Jersey pride. And this gentleman, he's been all over. He's been to Cali, but down to Florida, all the way back to Nevada. He's in Colorado. But ladies and gentlemen, his start was in Cherry Hill. He is a man that keeps on graduating every year. He's Chinese and Italian, makes him look Native American, which helped tremendously for his dance routine. I'm going to tell you guys, they call him the cleaner, and he has used the chamois from back in the day. We're going to talk a lot, but let me break character. His lucky number is 11, and I only know that from seeing on Pawn Stars when that episode first dropped. But he's done it all. Over 3,500 movies in adult entertainment, 20 years in adult entertainment, 10 dancing. May be very well responsible for bringing the Chippendale style of dance to Philadelphia and the tri-state area. But I digress. The man I speak of is Tommy Gunn. He's performed with some of the most notable names and companies in the history of adult entertainment, erotica as he likes to say, because the films he was in were more tailored to the movie aspect. Growing up, he saw Sly, Sylvester Stallone acting, and he himself wanted to do it. He just never envisioned his time on the big screen would be this way, but it has not been a negative. He's been part of some of the most prolific and important moments, not just in adult entertainment, but entertainment in general. Let's name some of his accolades. Being Performer of the Year, Rookie of the Year. He's also been inducted into the AVN Hall of Fame, the HRCO Hall of Fame, the Urban X Hall of Fame, recently in 2025. He has released his new book, Tommy Gunn Unloaded, which unveils more of his intimate and private life. He is a shy individual, but he's also overcome so many things, from trauma to being crippled and unable to walk, and also a couple of heartbreaks along the way. But he's highlighted his life and came on the show to talk about that, as well as his new documentary, Fans Only, which he has created to show the positivity in adult sex work. So ladies and gentlemen, without me fanboying too much, further ado, I bring to you Tommy Gunn. Good sir, how are you?
Oh, I'm wonderful. Wow, what an introduction that was, John. That's hope I live up to it.
Good sir, you've been living the life. But before we dive into this wonderful, interesting life you've been able to live, man, I know you were just at the Newport Beach Film Festival yesterday. How did that go last night?
Actually, it wasn't yesterday, but it was not too long ago. It was a wonderful experience, a wonderful event that we went to. I have some history with one of the gentlemen, Eddie Fiola. He was one of my idols as a kid growing up because I loved BMX, and as a kid growing up in Jersey, that's what we did. You know, me and my friends, we would pile into my truck and we would drive hours just to go and see these guys, Eddie Fiola and Martin Apparejo. So to go full circle 30, 35 years later to end up meeting Eddie even years ago, and then still and managing to stay in touch with him and stuff is really great. When he informed me about the Newport Beach Film Festival where they were screening the Gail Webb A Promise to a Friend documentary, I had to go. So I just finally got around to posting that. But it was a wonderful time. And again, just wow, unbelievable. Surreal, very surreal.
See, I didn't think it was a rumor, but now I'm happy to confirm, man. You did BMX. Man, good sir, I'm not even shocked at the trampoline accident. Your knees went through it before you even got to working out. You did soccer. I really got to ask, because I'm so passionate about all the things that you do as well. I wanted to know how you got into BMX. For me, it was Dave Mirra, and of course that was the Tony Hawk era. You grew up around that time where extreme sports was on the rise, and it just something I'm very, very passionate about, because it gave everybody, not just the outsiders, but everybody an outlet to be together.
Yes, I got into BMX at an early age. We all had our bicycles, but they certainly weren't BMX at the time. So one day, my dad came home from work. He was a businessman and traveled a lot, and he threw down this BMX action magazine on the table at dinner time, and I was like, "Wow, what's this?" Next thing you know, I'm looking through it, paging through it, and I was hooked. And I was like, I want one of those bikes. I have the bike I have now, but I want one of those. And then, through time, eventually he got me one, and I was just hooked, and I did the racing. I grew up in, like I said, New Jersey. So there was a place called Action Wheels in Woodbury, and they had a track that we used to go and ride the BMX and do the dirt tracks and the whole everything where the gate would fall down and you'd take off and you'd hopefully win. But then, there was a time where I kind of got a little bit out of the scene. But then when I came back, that's when this freestyle thing had jumped off. So I came back and got another bike and started doing the ramp stuff, riding the ramps and doing the flatland stuff. This is when all that stuff was kind of just coming into the scene there. So that was my thing, and then I stayed riding, until my late or early to mid 20s. And it was great. Really amazing experience.
And you're also a soccer player. I wanted to know if that was more so your dad's influence or mom's influence, because that runs pretty deep in both your ethnicities. I also had to ask which position.
So for soccer, that was, I think it was just, both parents, encouraging me to get out there and participate as a child in sports and in school and whatnot. So I started out as early as you could with soccer, middle school, and then into high school. I even played in high school. So, yeah, my father was primarily Italian. My mother was half Chinese. So it was an interesting diversification there. So yeah, growing up was amazing, and soccer was. I wish I could play it now. I still, my mind says, yeah, let's go out and do it, but my body says, maybe not, because we're not the way we were once upon a time.
But it's interesting because that was one of the sports that got me out of my shell. I didn't want to play soccer, and my friend was just egging me. I was like, "Come on, do it!" And I did not know I had a wonderful gift for being a goalie. Hated goalie, but I was so good at it. It was like a catch-22. I was like, dang, I want to be on the field. But we had some magical moments. I saw recently on your feed a picture, and it was not real life. It was a cartoon rendering, but it was somebody who looked like you with that long, gorgeous hair you've always preached about that we can't find a picture on, and then two other individuals. I wanted to know, was that picture with your parents that was just on the feed, was that an actual picture that was transcribed? I just thought it was a beautiful look at a family portrait.
If I'm correct, it's three people in the photograph. It's myself, my mother, and then my brother, my older brother. I have a 3-year older brother, so that's who that was. My father was not in the photograph with us with that that rendering there, but that was an interesting photograph. And yes, I did have the long locks for years. I wore the long hair, and I realized that the girls liked the long hair, and it was quite an interesting thing to be able to tuck it all up into a hat and then come out and do a routine dancing, and then all of a sudden reveal it by popping the hat off, and then boom, this hair comes out, and the girls went crazy. He's got long hair! Oh my God! Because long hair was popular, but more often than not, the guys back then had the shorter hair. So I was one of the longer hair. I filled the shoes of the long hair guy in the group at the time.
And one of the renegades, like how guys didn't have tattoos back in the day. Only the toughest or the military. Sir, I have to ask. I've heard you met a lot of people. You've met a lot of musicians. Little John. You met all these cool people, Coolio. But the one thing I heard that I have to confirm, if it's true, sir, I would never say F you. But if it is true, I would have if I was that disrespectful. You met Eddie Van Halen.
I did, and not only once. I look in the back there in the distance, and I see your guitar standing there, and I'm like, wow, this is great. I met Eddie a number of times. I'll try to be brief and condense them. The first time was in 1985 in the Spectrum in Philadelphia. There was a thing called a ticket upgrade, and how you won that was you took a bed sheet and you basically spray painted and made a banner that you would go to the event with, hang it over the ledge up in the nosebleed sections. Then they would see the banner and based upon the best one, you would win. So long story short, I knew a guy named uh, Me Ned Green. He was a radio guy, and I knew him through a girl that I liked. Long story short, he kind of pulled some strings for us, and he got us to win this banner contest, which was a great banner. Needless to say, uh, I can share that with you down the road here after after our little podcast here and such. You definitely appreciate that. And then the second time was about 10 years afterwards, out on the Camden waterfront. I was married at the time. My wife had graced the cover of Playboy magazine. So in going to the show, it was myself, my friend, and his wife. So the four of us, and my wife at the time. I put her magazine in the back pocket and said, "This is how we're going to meet the band." And they were all looking at me like, "How is that possible?" I said, "You watch and see." So we went to the Camden waterfront. We went in, got our tickets, paid, walked through the turnstile. Now we're in there. I immediately start looking for the guy who looked the most important. I found him. I went up to him. I said, "You see this girl? She's on the cover of Playboy. She's here and she loves Van Halen. She would love to meet the band." He said, "No problem." He took the magazine, went in the back, came out, said, "Come follow me." We went into the thing, and there they were. Boom, Van Halen. Second time. The third time was in Las Vegas about another, few years later. We went to the Hard Rock there at the joint they were playing. I grabbed some tickets. This was in Vegas. Went with an old girlfriend of mine. She and I went after the show. They came out into the casino area floor there, and I met him a third time. The fourth time was he got involved in the adult industry in the capacity where he met a gentleman named Michael Nin. Michael Nin had been a high fashion photographer and a number of other things that he was very skilled and gifted at. Eddie found him and wanted to do some work with him in the adult industry as far as produce and write music for. So that's a little strange. That's a story that not a lot of people know. But once he did that, he threw a party at his house, and he had about 600 people show up, and I was invited to go. And there I was now at Eddie Van Halen's house. I met with him and just had a great time and spent some time with him. And then, obviously because he was the host and hosting this party, he had to go around and mingle and stuff. But after that party, about a week later, I get a call from his girlfriend at the time. He said, "Eddie wants to invite you back to the house to go to the 5150 studios to sit in on a rehearsal with him and Wolfgang and his brother Alex." And I couldn't return that down. So I went and sat literally inches away from Eddie Van Halen while he played these songs that they were practicing to go out on tour with. I sat between Eddie and his son Wolfgang. I'll never forget it. I was literally 1 foot away from either of them. I could look down and see the pedals on the floor. I could watch his hands play with the veins in his hands. I could hear the pick plucking on the strings. It was unbelievable. And then after that, we went and had dinner there in I want to say right there on Ventura Boulevard at a place called La Tiramisu. Me, Eddie, we dropped off Wolfgang at his mom's, Valerie Bertinelli's house, and then we went and had dinner. And then, maybe a month went by. He was trying to, I guess he was in a dark area of his time, and he was getting out in rehab and whatnot. So on the last time I went to check on him, I was with a friend in my convertible car there, and we went and stopped at his house, pressed the button, the gate opened. I went up and saw him for the last time, and he said he had cut his hair off, and he said he was getting ready for a tour. But those were the times. I want to say maybe 5 or 6 times, or 4 or 5 times that throughout my life I met Eddie, and what an amazing guy he was, and what amazing experience. If I could have broke time for a moment and stayed in one time era for the rest of my life, it would have been right then at the studio and lived there forever. It was unbelievable.
Sir, I take my hat off to you. God bless you. That trumps any. That trumps Billy Corgan pranking me. That trumps all the times my love interest snuck me backstage. That was so cool to find out, because I know you and your brother had the band, and it just, when I initially came on to when you came onto my radar, I thought you were a guitarist because you have the Frankenstein, you have the Jackson, and you're plucking. Yeah, I was like, yo, you're on it, bro. You got this. So, are you, do you still feel naturally to the bass, or is your voice like me, guitar? I talk a lot with my voice, but the instruments I play, I'm like, it's something about the guitars. Like, this is my true essence coming out.
No, ever since I was a kid and I made a fake guitar out of a tennis racket and like a hockey stick and a piece of wood back in when Van Halen Jump came out. And I was a guitar, I wanted to play guitar. So that was my instrument that I always wanted to play growing up. When my brother and his guitar player in the band couldn't find a bass player, they said, "Look, I know you're taking lessons to play guitar, but we really need a bass player. Here's a bass." They took the guitar out of my hand, put a bass in my hand, and said, "We need you to play bass." So bass is similar. It's only the first four strings for the most part, and then uh, it was an interesting concept because, strangely enough, my brother and I are similar to the Van Halen brothers because of our ethnicity and diversity. My father was Italian, my mother was basically Asian, and if you do some research, Eddie Van Halen's parents were Dutch. His father was Dutch, and his mom was Asian, I guess, Indonesian. So an interesting uh, resemblance there. And he and I were brothers, and he played the drums, and I was going to be a guitar player. So I don't know. I felt very a very close similarity with Eddie and his brother and myself and my brother. So guitar is really, now that I'm back, I took a long absence from playing music at all, and then decided, you know what, I have to grab this guitar and see if I can channel Eddie and my love for playing with the guitar and music. And so I did. I got a few guitars now, and I just try to play as often as possible. So
It is really a different release. But I've done a couple of things where you get the high, and it's not a physical one, but it definitely is something that it's so therapeutic because it's so particularly you. The way you speak about yourself, you always sound like a go-getter. And it's kind of weird to try and understand this idea of like, oh, you're a shy guy, and you didn't know hair until 17, so you had those younger man tendencies to like avoid the cute girl you wanted, and it just every step of the way, no matter if it was a reason, whether or not it just happened, you always seemed to be the one to take the initiative step. Was that ever a thing in your mind? Because when I think about the time in the 20s before you got into the industry, man, you're working as a mechanic, you're dancing, but it always seemed like you were willing to do the next thing. Were you aware of what you wanted to do, or were you just kind of living life, seeing what was next? Because I also have in common with you the fact that I lived with my parents after college, so it was a time of like, I knew what I wanted to do, it just wasn't happening, so all these other experiences happened. Man, I'm gonna tell you, I was almost a 38-year-old dependent at home.
No, I can relate, absolutely. There was times where I kind of knew what I wanted to do, and I knew where I wanted to end up, I thought, but I didn't know how to get there. So as life kind of unraveled and revealed opportunities, I would take that and take that initiative. So it was always I always knew that you had to get up and do it yourself. Nobody's going to do it for you. As much as we try to get assistance and help and advice and some mentoring and encouragement from people. That's all great and wonderful, but at the end of the day, we are who we spend our most time with, ourselves, and that relationship with yourself is going to be the closest one you have with someone. And the sooner you can kind of control that mindset, and that your mind can do both, destroy you or save you. So I always tried to, like I said, when in terms of Rocky and seeing these underdogs and doing stuff that was beyond their power, but yet continuing on and going forward to try to prevail. even in failure, you're prevailing and winning because you never gave up. You can't lose if you never quit. So I just I always felt like, and you mentioned some of my struggles and darker periods of time, even injuries and accidents and drugs and just my goodness, I even still to this day at this moment I'm at a place where I think I know what I want to do. Still, I have some vision and I can visualize that, but I just hope that the universe hears me and can uh, provide me with the opportunities. I don't want to not do the work. I want to do the work, but I just hope that the universe is reciprocal in that respect.
I wanted to subtly go into the different traumas you've had because you've said you've always been a great motivator. There are stories where you've taught girls out of scenes in the best possible way. It's like, wait, so why are you doing this? It's like, I need the money. And then for the various reasons, it's like, you know what, let me take you aside. And you were really protecting your starlet in a time where you were closer to the toxic time in pornography where dudes were taking advantage, people were getting seriously hurt. I wanted to know if there was a story that kind of took you aback because you're very caring. Every girl wants to work with you. And even if they said, deserted island, I want Tommy because he'll make something and take care of me. You got the 2+ combo. I wanted to know if there was a story where you had to either A, physically step up for your co-star, that she was in danger and you had to put your foot down like, no, packing up, we're done. Or if there was a time where you helped somebody and they came to you later and said, hey, you know, I don't know if you knew at that time I needed to hear that, but this is the extreme positivity you gave me. Was there any time like that?
Absolutely. There was a few times where I would just sense that something wasn't right. You know, you can tell when someone's excited about doing something, and when you can also tell when they might be just not present entirely. You know, and I would have these moments. Obviously over 20 years, not a lot, but a fair enough amount of time to sense and say, what's going on? Like I know you're here and stuff and you're new, but what is your, like, what were some of your, decisions and why to be here? Well, you know, someone say, I need money and I'm having trouble with this and those things. And I said, I understand that. I understand that. I said, where are you from? Oh, I'm from the Midwest or whatever. I said, what were you doing there? I was going to school, trying to do this. And I realized that, times had been tough and I want to do this. And I said, well, the business will always be here. This industry is not going anywhere. I said, maybe you would reevaluate what it is that you really want to do. And, you try to get back to where you started here. And it seems like you're already on a path with school and stuff. School, go accomplish your goals with school and get your education and do those things. And if you still decide and you've a couple more trips around the sun and you're older and you can kind of honestly say that's a trajectory I'd like to go on, then we'll always be here. So I've had that happen a number of times where, I would get a message or something through a social media that said, thank you so much for your time and your consideration and your observation. That I left and went back, and I went back to school and I finished, and I repaired that relationship with my parents and stuff. And so I thank you for that. And because I was in a far different place than them, I started at 36, which was old enough to have had that life experience to be able to recognize and see a younger person kind of in a needy position or trying to figure out what they're trying to do. And on the set there in our industry, that can be that can be I'm going to say dangerous place to do that, but that certainly could be a place of, not of unaware and really, you're about to do something that'll be immortalized forever. So, you know, so I've had that a couple times, and I'm always, like I said, I've mentioned in some of my other interviews and stuff, is, I always felt like a caretaker while I was working in the business. I would be structured. A scene is a scheduled thing. We show up, we know what we're getting into, and anytime that I work, even still to this day, my co-star is in my care. Once we start, and so I'm going to look out for them in many ways, physically, emotionally, mentally, all those ways, and because I never want to see somebody do something they don't want to do. I mean, sure, there's a fair amount of people in the world, percentage wise, who go to work and do a job they don't want to do. That's why it's called a job. But in the adult industry or in an entertainment business, when it's of that type of situation, it can be, it can definitely be a strange moment for that person. So.
And to think about how you were able to enter in a little bit random, the story with the girl smoking the cigarette. You should do this. I don't know if every guy can relate,
Yeah.
but I myself never thought I would have that moment where a girl would be with me and we didn't do anything. We didn't do anything. She's over here, you got it. I'm like, girl, we did not. We have hugged and made out. What the hell are you talking about? And a lot of guys in the industry have had those stories where the girl says, "Oh, you can do this," but the girl you were with actually was a pro. She actually had been filming, going to Cali. She brought you out there. You met Lee Stone, Mark Davis, but Brad Armstrong was the one that took a liking to you. You both were dancers, and the dividends that you've done, not just for the industry but for people and taking care of others, that kind of really solidifies in my mind him going out of his way and taking a liking to you and giving you an opportunity when he was more closed off and didn't help people in the way he opened the door. I wanted to know because you would call him at months at a time. For those that don't know, when you first met him, he gave you his card and you would flash it to your friends every couple of months, be like, hey, and then they call you BS on it, then you call him, he's like, hey, you ready? Or I can't talk now. And in my mind, I'm thinking like, yo, if I'm him, I'm like, this dude again, man, don't call me if you ain't going step. What the hell? You wasted time. I'm in production. It's always when I'm on set. At least that's what I envisioned.
Yeah.
But he told you, like, when you said you were ready, he was like, it's about time, and then he set you up and gradually got you in there. I wanted to know what that conversation was like after the wins, after the AVN nominations and all these accolades, being in Pirates. Did you really sit down and was like, hey, was it just a feeling, or did you know something? Was this a random fluke? It just, for him to do that, and everybody says it, he doesn't do it all the time. He told you, I don't do this for everybody. Was there a conversation?
Yeah. There wasn't like a direct conversation, but obviously with my 20-year tenure in the business and seeing him constantly all the time, once he got me in and there I was, I'd work with him quite often. And then there would be times, little stretches of time where we weren't around each other, but we got very close and had a lot of personal time and stuff together. And there was some conversations where he said, man, if I'd have known you were going to do this well, I would have been your agent. And I said, well, I appreciate that, vote of confidence and stuff. And I said, well, I had a responsibility. And he said, what do you mean? I said, I couldn't bear a bad name for you by you doing what you did. I had to uphold something. You put your neck out on the line. I couldn't end up being some guy that you looked and said, why did I do that? So he said, yeah, wow, I can't believe it. And still, even to this day, what he wrote in my book, as far as an acknowledgement there, was really amazing. And again, still, even to this day, I owe a great debt of honor to him. And what it was he saw, I don't know, but I can only imagine that he was confident in what that was. And again, like I said, it was my responsibility uh, to to carry his name in that respect. From him help me out in doing such a thing, it was still is to this day memorable and just unbelievable that that was my, I guess, introduction to the industry. Couldn't have gotten any better than that. I mean,
Porn saved your life, and I want to tastefully introduce the traumas because those three traumas, the big three, um, just devastating on all counts. The first one, finding your mom when you came home. She had passed away by suicide. And that was something that just made you numb for a while. And I found it interesting how you found your first ex-wife. It was your birthday, I believe it was May 13th, and you guys went to go see The Crow. And it developed from there, and you guys got together. And then, of course, the injury, after working out, getting to the best shape of your life. I wanted to know what was that time like for you in your mind? Because time does heal all wounds, but certain things stick with you. I just wanted to know how The Crow alleviated that pain along with her, and how you compartmentalized it at the time. Can you still watch The Crow? Is it one of those movies that, it gives you solace watching? Is it something that's too close to home still? What was the dichotomy between mom and the injury? Because now that's two stresses that you came back from.
sure. Well, obviously, losing a parent, especially in that capacity, and witnessing it and finding them in that state is just, it's unbelievable. It's hard to even express and describe. I can close my eyes and see the moment pretty vividly. I try not to do that, but and then meeting the girl shortly after that episode, I felt like there was some sort of universe giving me someone to help me through that time. And then when seeing The Crow the way we did on my birthday, our first date together, and me longing for someone to love and be able to share myself with and all those things of life, that's what kind of marked it. And the movie, the way it was basically a love story, a vengeance, to avenge, and a love story. And I just and then you got Brandon Lee, who's Asian, quarter, I want to say half Chinese, maybe, or so. I don't know. There was something there, that was kind of something that I could really connect with. So I'm not entirely sure if I'm answering the question properly, but I can still watch the show. It's one of my favorites, and again, it's a daily thing to there's trauma like that is something that will remain with you all the time, and it's like an unraveling. Each year is another year that goes by. It's been 30 years now, 31 years, and there's times and moments that you feel, and you just you may have had different feelings and similar ones throughout this time, but it's just unraveling as you go. You learn more and more about how you're dealing with it and stuff. It's nothing I want to run from, because I want to honor that, honor my mother in her life and such. So I bear whatever that is, and I carry it with me honorably, because it's my duty, and it's a tough thing. And not to now, having divorced that girl at the time when I was with her and stuff, and she's on a hope, I give much uh hope to her and her life, and that she's living a good life. And I wish them all, I wish everybody who I meet briefly or have a long standing relationship with, I wish everyone the best. And because life is so hard in itself already, I never want to have any malice or any, grudges with people. I think when we start to forgive people, even people who hurt us and people who've hopefully tried to help us or made any or all efforts, they say there's three people in the world that you should try to uh, forgive, and that's your parents because they tried their best to raise you, having no experience at all in doing that. That was their that was their attempt. Secondly, you want to forgive yourself because you have to. You're again. This is our first time on this planet doing this thing called life, and man, what a what a what joyous moments and horrific times there are. So, and then thirdly, you want to forgive the people who've hurt you and who've done things to you, whether it was their intentions or it was their misunderstandings of themselves and in the way they treated you and how they conducted themselves. And maybe there's some resentment there of why did I do that to that person. So it's again, it's a long answer there, but life is definitely an interesting thing, and we're doing it. We're still in it. We're still doing it, and we're getting up and swing and keep. You fall down 6 times, you get up 7.
I also had to specify if 11 is your lucky number, but I think looking back on your past and the trauma you've experienced and been able to overcome, that's why you were perfect at the time, especially for adult industry where a lot of people were either running from their past or just diving deeper. And that's what happened for you when you initially had your first divorce. You came home. I hate it when people strategically do stuff like, oh, there's no other time, we gotta do it now. Like, no, you didn't have to break up with me on Valentine's Day, which happened to you. You didn't have to send me a text instead of a phone call. I thoroughly have a hate for that. And that was the time where you were in Florida. You had rehabbed yourself after 9 grueling months. After I don't know how you were both. That just is a testament to your strength. Because what was it? You were benching or you were lifting for something?
Yes, I was at a point where I could do 400 pounds. 405 is the number because it's four 45 plates on either side. So I could do 405 for 15, 20 reps. I had what they call wheels. Wheels is a reference to your legs from a bodybuilding reference. I had the best wheels. My wheels were my better body part. So when I got up on this trampoline, somehow, some way, I managed to create enough stress on the legs momentarily for them to fail. And what an unbelievable moment of just surprise and just unaware that this thing could even take place. And there I was thrust into that moment, like, what on earth, out of the blue. Talk about having to let the rug pulled out from under you.
After that, you rehabbed, you got better, and you started dancing again. You guys went to Florida, you had the breakup, and you just kind of went into a spiral of doing drugs. You were doing drugs, you were drinking, and you got into that over and over again style. And I wondered, did you ever look back on that event as one of those things like, you know what, at the time, especially the bodybuilding community was gung-ho on steroids, and that was probably a worse addiction than most of the drugs you would probably have had. I don't know if you were ever able to make kind of a solace with that injury. And another idea, I'm giving you 2 questions in one, I apologize, sir. It's more so the idea of like, when did you ever make peace with that situation with her? Because you had a very intense moment where you were done, you came back to your place, your friend gave you a gun, and luckily by the grace of my God, I don't know if you still believe, but my God, I'm a bad Christian, you fell asleep, you passed out, but then when you woke up, you saw the note, the suicide note, you saw the gun loaded, and it booed you out of your situation, like, whoa, no, all right, too close, and then you went on to do what you did. I wanted to know, they always say, when you're recognized, because we all want to be recognized, that that wind of vindication comes. So here you are winning AVN Rookie of the Year, you're winning Best Scenes, you're winning Man of the Year. Did you feel a sense of, yeah, I earned it. This is full circle now. I don't want to mention her name. I do believe I know her name, but did she ever do what they tell us they would do? Is like reach out, like, hey, I hope you're okay. Like test the waters to try and see if they made a mistake, and then you can let them know, like, yeah, you did. You know, you're not that type of person to throw it in her face, but there is a sense of accomplishment when you achieve high levels that you worked really hard for, and you can show people like, no, I'm worth it.
No, I never had any contact with her from the day she decided to, and we amicably separated. She went her way. I said, okay. And I never saw her again, never spoke to her barely. And then after all these years, I had I guess no contact to say like, wow, you did, or I want to apologize. Nothing, none of that. And that's okay. That's okay. And then as far as, those moments of, those brief moments of winning and success and, the accolades and stuff, they were great and definitely exciting and accomplishing in a respect where I'm like, wow, I did it. I managed it, but I have a sense, I've always had a sense of, when I accomplish something, I have a hard time kind of reveling in that moment because it happens. I acknowledge it. I witness it. And then I think to myself, what's next versus celebrate the moment. And so I've always been like, what's next, and I'm trying to change that in order to celebrate the moment and live in the now, not have a victory and then already be into the future, like what's next, because the future hasn't happened yet. The moment is the moment. Live in the moment, capture the moment. So I'm trying to get better to do that instead of what's next. I remember winning the Male Performer of the Year honor and looking out of my hotel window in Vegas at the Strip, almost sad in the respect where I won, but now what's next? Versus, oh my God, revel in that moment and enjoy that. So,
Man, that's so reminiscent of Paul Stanley when he finally achieved playing at MSG, and then right after he's at the diner across the street, and he's just, or I think a couple other musicians that have had stories like that, where it's kind of like the chase is better than the catch. So now what? But you've even if you didn't enjoy it in the moment, good sir, you've lived an extraordinary life of those moments. Some of the best videos of you that I really think you're in the zone are when you're out in the desert, when you're working on the cars. I'm telling you, the gun show, I love working on stuff, but I'm telling you, it is a pain in the ass, man. I had to fix a PlayStation 5 controller. It was like I had a board on my forehead, and I'm like, is there a particular area or place that your energy just vibes best, and you feel that peace of mind that you, like you said, enjoy the moment? When I see those videos with you off-roading, even when you're camping, we both don't like the tents. We want to be inside, but we're still outside. There's a sense of peace that I can see. You're a man of the world. That Native American portion that technically isn't in you, but is in you, is really showcasing. I always think of places where I have that good energy. I go to New York, and it's like a negative times a negative. It's dangerous there. I could get shot there. I was like, oh, I feel safe now. Philadelphia, very, very hard-working energy, not negative. But that's the environments where I'm like, that's where I'm me. Where do you feel like that's for you? Is it Colorado now, where you have that sense of peace and that good vibe energy?
It is wonderful here, and I do have that good vibe and peace energy. Obviously, I love nature, so I love to be out. It's a tough thing because I love nature. I love being out in the middle of nowhere. I love the desert. anywhere for the most part. You know, I typically don't like the cold, but I'll 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 suffer through it because it's not terrible. Uh, Plus, you know, I do I enjoy people too. You know, like I love like at the moment I'm single. I have no special someone in my life. That's a difficult thing to navigate. But I also love like being with somebody and sharing my myself with them, and uh, also teaching and looking after someone and protecting someone. So I really love the relationship, married, whether it's married relationship or anything. I just love being nice to people, and caring and giving, and protecting of and providing in many ways. So is there a place where I find myself? I do enjoy, like I said, I've been so many cool places out in the desert on my roof of my truck with the stars shining, and that's great, but I'm by myself. So it's fun up until the moment where I'm like, man, if I only had somebody here, how much cooler would that be? And they say there's a saying, it's not the journey or it's not the journey, it's not the destination, it's the journey. And I believe that, but I also believe there's a newer version of that. And I believe that because my version is this, and I've heard this before, and I've kind of made it my version is it's not the destination or the journey. It's who's with you. It's who's in your company. That's what makes those things even more enjoyable and fulfilling. Because when you're by yourself, you have this inner dialogue, and you're there and you're doing stuff, and you're like, man, but boy, if somebody else was here, how much cooler and more enjoyable to just exchange energy, because that's what life is. It's an energy exchange. It doesn't have to be a lover or so, it could be a friend. And soulmates aren't only like lovers. It could be a soulmate friend or a soulmate. So I just love the energy exchange with people and stuff. And sometimes, we obviously get disappointed in people's behavior because we expect ourselves in them, which is a shame because it's hard to find that. Not everybody is reciprocal of the way you are to them. So I do have a number of places I enjoy. I love the desert. I love, I just love nature. In addition, I love to be around people and be in in those joyous moments, and having that energy exchange. So there's my long version of answers.
Thoroughly understand that that want to have somebody. I've struggled with this idea, maybe because I have a thing for concerts. So I say if there's a concert I miss, I've been so fortunate to have seen so many other ones people would have killed for, that I'm gonna trust life saying that was the one that wasn't for me. And I run into a lot of situations like that where you're at a show, you're at an event, it's like, oh, this would be better if I could just share it. And sometimes I have to sit back. I was like, no, this one's for me. This one's just me, and that could be hard to grasp, man.
Yeah.
Was there any moments in the book? Let's really shoot over to Unloaded. I know people were telling you to do it for years. You didn't do it for money. You just wanted to put the stories out there, and you had to pull it back, man. You narrowed it from 1,603,000 words. Hold on, I messed up the words. 1,603,000 words. And you had to narrow it down, or it would have been like 500 pages. That's just the beauty of how much you had to talk about when you're rehashing the good stories, not just the bad, but the good stories. Were there any stories that you remembered that were kind of like that, where you were on your own, and it's like, you know what, if that didn't happen, this moment was so monumental in my psyche that, yeah, it was a good thing that this happened this way or that happened that way. Were there any stories you were really fond of, like when you were condensing, you're like, no, keep it right there, sir. Do not get rid of it.
Of course, a number of them. I mean, so many moments through life and whatnot that were just, monumental in itself that happened. And again, I use these examples as, playing in the band with my brother was just wow. I'm up on stage, he and I are just, and Ed too, our guitar player at the time. There I was, just, you know, again, being a shy kid and very reserved and bashful. And now I'm just kind of up there and doing stuff and playing. And then I've always been one way or another in a I guess voyeuristic thing. Soccer is made to be watched too. You play it, but then there's also an expectation. There's a spectator point of it. The spectator, and then BMX. You know, I've always been stuff where it was. If you notice, it's not a one man project, but you as one person contribute to that thing. So you know, you got a teammate full of soccer players, but you're that one guy, and you're doing that one position, but it's a team, but then it's still spectator sport. BMX was, you know, you're by yourself, you got your bike, it's you and your bike. That was a spectator sport. You know, you're doing it for two reasons. One, for yourself, because it feels good, like, wow, I just pulled off that trick. But then, wow, other people saw it and they would appreciate that. And then getting into the band and stuff, you know, there I was, me and the bass. It was the bass and I, and then the teammates, the guitar player and the drummer and my brother. But it's a spectator sport. So as much as I was always shy and whatever, I managed to be in a way where I could uh, get out of that and be. So there's plenty of moments, you know, meeting Eddie Fiola, Eddie Van Halen, even my wife, and the moments of times. So many moments fishing with my dad, you know, spending time with my mom, my brother. Is this so many moments. And again, I might get off track because I tend to do like runaway sentences in my you know. So many. Oh, we're gonna have a jet fly over. My dog's gonna start freaking out. Anyway, we have jets obviously because we're so close to military bases and whatnot. The jets fly over and the dog flips out. But again, I hope I answered that question accordingly. So.
Yes, you did, sir, and beautifully. You do these run-ons, sir, because you're dropping wisdom in every sentence. That just
okay.
not to pull away from the book, but what you mentioned about being voyeuristic, but also having that intimacy of having to do it yourself, reminded me when I did cross country, and it's a team sport, but you're on your own, man. You better beat that one runner, and that was a time where I was starting to learn how to cope with stress mentally. You start understand. That was one of the worst things I learned in a class for anxiety. It's like, notice the anxiety, understand the anxiety, ask yourself why you're anxious. And then when I figured it out, I was like, well, damn it, I was good when I didn't know I was anxious. Now I got to deal with this.
Yeah.
But it was the first time.
Now I'm aware of it.
It was the first time I was able to really clear my head on those runs for practice by myself, get to a space, and even now I've tried different techniques. I've tried hypnosis, I've tried meditation, you know, studies, depending on what type of religion or how you subscribe to your deity. And I was wondering if the book was something that has helped you. And you also did an interview with the Hopeaholics Podcast, and you guys got really, really deep. And I wanted to know if they were able to ascribe any ideas to you, because at the end of it, I don't want to be disrespectful to a different podcast because everybody has their style, but it did seem a little overbearing with the options they were trying to give you. It's like, you should do this and do that. I was like, whoa, let's see if he wants to first. You know, was the book kind of that release of, hey, let me take a breath, let me try and harbor some peace, and then continue?
Oh yeah, doing the book was definitely therapeutic and allowed me to get a lot of things off my chest and be able to observe them and kind of recognize how they affected me in different ways and motivated me or made me have some awareness of, wow, that's a thing I should take notes of, you know, how to I guess, you know, go beyond that. You know, I unpacked a lot, so now it's kind of like, you know, there's life before the book and now there's life after the book. So there was definitely times in there that were and doing, like I said, unpacking And to your observation of the Hopeaholics thing, I bless them all, bless their hearts for that. But in their suggestions of what to try to do, and things I could potentially want to try to do to find some peace or whatnot, I felt that a little bit, but that's okay. In what they were trying to convey, it was all nothing. It was nothing but love. So I sensed that.
And you were aware of what they thought you weren't aware. Guys, you can go check out that podcast after this one. Just hit like, subscribe, and go buy the book, and then you can go check that one out with them. But it was something I've seen a lot where people don't they want to help so much, but they can't see. The person might be in a different level, and you have to tread carefully. But speaking of life after the book, sir, I can't give you a question without adding two questions in it. Because you mentioned the military base, and it just made me think, like, you're always in camo, man. Pawn Stars, you popped out in the summer at that shop. A quick side story. My phone died at the Mob Museum on Fremont, and I walked all the way Pawn Stars. I didn't even get to see what you got to see, and then I had to walk all the way back to Luxor. It was crazy. And you're out here in full military camo selling a Murder the Zombies truck. I'm like, what the hell? So props to that, sir. But I know you have a love for the military, and exotic performers always have the best charities I've ever seen. Sarah J., Small Hands, they drop some of the most amazing charities that I would have never thought existed. So I wanted to know, where does your heart stem for the military, since you've always repped them, you've always spoken kind about them, and do you have any charities that are close to your heart?
I look at the military and I'm reluctant because part of me wishes I had served. I never have. I do come from somewhat of a military family on my uncle's side. He served as a naval captain, and my cousin, Navy was the branch, and he was actually one of the gentlemen who developed GPS present day. That's a whole nother conversation. Dr. Joseph Strata, he was one of the guys on the testing panel, and one of the brilliant minds that created GPS. So when it comes to veterans and military, I just, I realize that they go and they devote their lives and to serve their country, and they come back and sometimes experience, more often than not, a difficult time kind of assimilating back into society after having been out there on their deployments and whatever nature that they served. So I don't have any charities. I'd like to develop something, to be honest with you, something that would help veterans, and that's what the gun show is. That the potential I have about this show where I would be a host. I wanted to have a lot of guests that were, veterans and first responders and heroes of those walks of life, and even someone who's not one of those, but maybe has a heroic kind of role in their lives, because parents are heroes. They gotta raise kids and be good examples for their upbringing, and that's got to be difficult. I was never a parent, but I might be getting off track. But the gun show would be something I would love to develop and have interesting guests on, and really bring out the human side of everyone, despite what you do in the walk of life and the job that you have, that we can all relate to. So it's, as far as the gun show is concerned, I would love to develop that and have that be something where it did give back to veterans, first responders, and again, heroes of all shapes and sizes, because there's a lot to do that. And again, I would love to. I don't know if you've seen the gun show concept there or not. I'm sure you have, right?
I see it now, man. Listen, you're already dressed in the camo, whatever. John back in Jersey. I'm gonna say John because I hope the bartender's name was John. I know it might have been Paul. You had the metaphorical guns. You had the guys that held the real guns. Yeah. And I was also thinking, breaking character. I don't know if you know Steve-O, and he has his little van that he goes across the country, and he does the
Okay.
podcast in the van. Man, you're building these machines. What more badass studio than to drive a truck, do cross country, and then hit a particular city, a VA, talk with a veteran, established, struggling, like that is up your alley, because you're so, I don't know if people have mentioned it outside of the industry, but even with this conversation, man, you're very nurturing. You've been reading, I've done a couple of slip-ups, I've done this, I've done that, and you've been able to read how I'm trying to respond, and you've been able to give it back to me. It's like, no, I got you. So that's a talent that people don't, you can make somebody at ease by just being there. You don't have to talk. So I could definitely see this gun show working for you.
And again, it's about just things are timing right now with the book and the documentary that I'm doing. I got a pretty full plate, but I always, again, there's my multitasking ability to think beyond just what I'm doing at the moment. So I do have a lot of hopes for the gun show, and everything has a cost. You got to find ways to produce these things and really at the end of the day roll up your sleeves and get out of bed and do it. So I'd love to really see the gun show become something and be the host, kind of like a Mike Rowe type of situation there.
Love Dirty Jobs, man. Speaking of the documentary, fans, oh, sorry, just play on OnlyFans, but fans only. And you teamed up with working with Joel Van Halen of the Gypsy Billionaire director, and you guys met all the famous people you be meeting at these conventions, and they just out of nowhere, man. We'll talk about that too. But you guys really developed a close relationship to make the documentary. I wanted to know if you learned anything different from making the documentary, because there's clips where you're getting him Alexis Texas, Danny Mountain, and he's just kind of like, how are you doing this short notice? And it usually is a different process for documentaries where bunch of time scheduling out. So I wanted to know how that process went for you, and did you learn anything that was kind of different as opposed to when you worked in the mainstream, when you worked for adult entertainment? Was there any lessons that you were like, oh, that was something I would have never guessed?
It was more of a responsibility, when doing the adult as an actor. I just show up and they tell me what to do, and here's the script, and I do the performance, and I get to go home, and I don't have any responsibilities other than what I'm set out to do. But from a production standpoint, there's a lot of things, there's scheduling and transportation and accommodations, and we got to eat, and this person into this time slot, and we got to, make sure the camera guy can be available, and myself as well, and we can all kind of ascend on this one moment of where we have somebody scheduled, and hopefully, they had a little bit of a problem. They can't make this. Can we adjust? So now we got to do that. So it was more of the learning experience was that as a producer, you're doing a lot of things to try to keep those things on the same trajectory as you'd hope to. So I learned a lot, and I'm still in that process of learning. So because we're underway with our second episode, just getting finalizing color and sound, and so it's happening. We're still, even now, we have a big premiere in London on November 22nd for Fans Only 2, and that's pretty exciting. So producing is a 24-hour job. It's not just at that moment on the set. It's around the clock thing. So you're constantly coordinating and deducting from things or adding things and realizing it doesn't all just fall into place.
And I'm sure your time having your own company when you're distributing also helped to that, because it has been mentioned that you do all your own work. You don't have a management. You handle it all yourself. Another story that you guys need to read in the book. But that documentary is going to be on Amazon and a couple of other streaming services. Go check it out now. I wanted to know, because you mentioned it's going to be over in London. Danny Mountain was part of that film, and I also heard, not sure if it's rumor, if it's true, but I heard that ICE had actually picked him up and sent him back. I wanted to know, because you guys are such good friends, if you were able to get in contact, make sure he was okay, but also the timing for the film of like, man, we got him just in time?
Sure. I I reached out personally to him. Unfortunately, I had no response, and I didn't want to be pushy because that's, I guess in due time when he is capable of letting us know what happened. But it's true. I heard that there was some sort of interaction with ICE in what capacity, and I'm not sure. So I don't want to give any false, information that I'm not actually entirely accurate about. So there was some involvement there, but again, I don't know to what extent. Hopefully, it's not anything bad.
For the documentary, there's so many wonderful voices that champion this product, and you've been vocal about it for years, but it has been kind of befuddling to me how overseas there's a country, I want to say it's Sweden, I cannot remember for the life of me, sir, I apologize, but they had an actress, an adult performer, become president. Overseas, it's legitimized work. It's understood that, hey, this is one of the things like waitressing. Anybody can do it. You could be just for the love of it. You could be desperate. But the social stigma with it here in the States is still very Bible Belt, still very like, oh, well, if it's not right, you can't do it. And I wanted to know who you felt has been the best champion for creating an articulate thought and expression along the same way you have when defending adult performers. I think of Holly Randall, who you've also had contact with. Sherry DeVille is a great one. Alexa Fox did a wonderful presentation explaining, another veteran, the benefits and the positives, that it's not all negative. Who do you think are some of the most powerful voices and would be good people if you could get them onto the production for Fans Only?
Well, you named a few already for Fans Only One. All the participants we've kind of knew we kind of took a look at them prior and said, will they be a good role model? And we knew that. So going in, Emma Hicks, Holly Randall, Sherry DeVille, like you said, Alexis Fox, Alexis Texas, Danny Mountain, and then even in episode 2, I don't want to spill the beans of who we got, but these are all wonderful, fine examples of people who can represent and uh, articulate and be transparent about their feelings and the way they approach the industry and how they conduct themselves in the world and stuff, and the way stigmas that they exist that exists that they experience on a daily basis from society. It's just, we're not murderers, like Anna Fox said in episode 2 or episode 1. We're not like wrestlers, we're not, it's like wrestlers only work on the stage. They do their thing, and they're not wrestling people out in society and doing stuff. So we're not conducting ourselves the way we do on set in society. We just, it's a performance. We go, we do our job, and then we're back to just being like normal people. There might be an argument to that. People say, oh, you're not normal, you're this and that, but who knows, who's normal are we talking about? I don't know. I mean, it's interesting to back that up. So many great voices that we've been grateful enough to get to be representative of the show and of its message, because it's a message at the end of the day. It's like a movement. I didn't want to just sit back and let people beat us up constantly and say our industry is so terrible. And again, too, additionally, I didn't want our industry to be balled up into one, because there's a lot of different facets of adult and stuff that I'm not necessarily in disagreement with, but it's not my particular, ball of wax, if you will, or it's not my particular, because there's a different, there's a different thing going on in today's landscape of adult, and it's that whole shock value type thing, and how many partners can you have in the course of 24 hours? That's not what we do. That's not what I do. I come from a place where we made movies and things that were entertaining, not some circus act. And again, who am I to judge what they do?
But it is very reminiscent. She used professional wrestling, and that's a beautiful example. I think of where I started my professional wrestling training, and they're known for the blood and guts and literally glass and gladiator, barbed wire, basically destroying the body for the art of entertainment. And it is art, but you're more from the finer cut of, no, we're doing a full production. I always think of Pirates in Tampa, man. I'd have been pissed if I was that captain. I'd be like, you're doing what on my boat, man? Oh, Lord. But it's funny. I wanted to go into the SAG-AFTRA because even Richard Dreyfuss, we know that story where he was just hanging out and you guys ended up unloading. What a wonderful opportunity. I don't even know which one's better, Richard Dreyfuss or Eddie Van Halen, just chilling with these guys. But he gave you that boost of, hey, you can be an actor too, man. You got it. And I don't think he's not in a position to bullshit you on that. They don't just say that. Like, acting's very like, you got it or you don't. I wanted to know for you, because Pirates did so good internationally. It did so good here that they were selling at Blockbuster, no scenes. I wanted to know, since you've been trying to start acting a little bit more, you are SAG-AFTRA, did the thought of trying to go overseas and do parts as well? Because they're very, very receptive to adult entertainers, like we mentioned, but there's also like new ground for you to conquer. Did you think about that?
Oh, absolutely. As far as, potential other, places, like you said, Europe their culture is a lot more open to that I guess entertainment, if you will. Like, there's a gentleman, Rocco Siffredi, who's hailed as a big superstar in Italy. I spent some time in Italy years ago and had a great reception. It wasn't like anything, over the top, but I had a fair amount of people recognize me and give me praise and like, wow, you're Tommy Gunn. You're Italian. They knew my ethnicity and my lineage, or they knew my background. So yeah, I would love to go overseas. And like I said, I've been a number of times, and it's always a great reception there. It's always I'd love to do some acting over there, but I think what takes place here in America it's weird because, we're such an evolved country, Western, but yet it's got its Puritan roots, if you will. But that all came from Europe anyway, the Puritans, right? They came over from. So I don't know how it still exists, but I think in a European sense, in the way adult entertainment is viewed there, it's more acceptable, and it's not so, I guess, frowned upon. Why and how it happens in America, I don't know.
You definitely have had some interesting acting career options. Things have happened, but I wanted you to go more into the scripts that you had, because some of the scripts that you mentioned prior to, I was like, you know what, that's an ingenious idea. What really sparked the two scripts that you mainly have ready? And I'm going to allow you to tell the crowd, the audience, what those were, because the way you explained it on the last time I was doing my research was just so potent. I thought it was just, it hit from a place of like, you know what, this is like, divine inspiration. There's a story that needs to be heard. So I really wanted to strike when you had the idea for both scripts, and if you did kind of feel like, hey, this is just flowing out of me, or it's just, no, this is something I'm passionate about. I really got to get this out.
I came up with the concept myself on both, but I had Brad help me with the second one and the first one. So I have a zombie script. And the reason why that's pretty interesting is that as an actor in the adult industry, I always thought if I wanted to do something mainstream, maybe I had to make like a specific on-ramp or not an excuse to end up to make a movie, but I thought, well, what if I just, how can I use my own situation as a way to create a story around it, where instead of a group of people looking down at a person for the choices they made as a career, we create a situation where that very thing was the reason why they were going to be the chosen one to save and to fix the problem, was the very thing that they looked down upon him for. So zombie proof is a story about kind of a backstory about myself as a young guy living in Jersey, wanting to become an actor, going out to Hollywood, finding out it was a lot more difficult than it was, but landing a job as an actor in the adult industry, which is a small version of Hollywood. That's kind of a little parallel on the way things work for me. But the way the story unfolds is the fact that I did so many movies uh, in the adult industry and had so many, I guess, co-stars and sexual encounters that uh, somehow or another I managed to work up a resistance from a sickness standpoint to where I was the savior. The very fact that I did what I did was without tipping my hat too much. Uh, you know, there's the elephant in the room, and then there's he just so happens to be the savior of our town because of his choices as a job, because he's zombie proof. You know, I don't know if I'm describing that enough to you, but that was an excuse why I made the movie, or why I chose that storyline. And then the second story is I was always of the thought, kind of thinking along the lines of like how Sylvester Stallone was. You can always there's two ways to do something. You find a group of people are doing what you want to do, and you ask them to be part of that, and then they have to accept you and say, yes, you can be part of that with us, come in and do that with us. Or instead, you create your own project, and you don't need permission. You just fund it and do it yourself, and you surround yourself with other actors, and now you're doing it, and you're doing it, you're making a movie, right? So the second storyline was about a guy that I would play. In this story, he meets a child who's suffering from a terminal illness. So what do those two people have that what they could give to each other? And that's the second. The second script is called The Long Road Home, which is about a guy who was a career criminal in and out of prison his whole life. What happens when he meets a terminal child who's dying of cancer and has there is no hope for him. It's just a matter of time. What could they possibly give each other? And then that's how the story unfolds. And it's a number of things, of which there's some redemption, uh, there's some inspiration there. So that's kind of how I guess write or come up with ideas. Is there's always some human level in the story that the audience can go, wow, but obviously it's based on, there's a background story, in the way it's told. So the script Zombie Proof and The Long Road Home are inspired from just things that I think, I guess that I've experienced in some sense, uh, and now as a way of to write to come up with a story and and as a writer was, and again, not to make an excuse, but you use kind of what you have as a motivator and kind of a way to inspire you to tell a story. So between Zombie Proof and The Long Road Home, they kind of parallel a little bit of some of my life in a way, what I'm experiencing. And again, that's a long version of it.
But I love, especially when I first heard about the second script, and I was just thinking, like, how have you not ran into Slide yet? This is unimaginable.
I know.
How you haven't hit up some
I know.
because he gets it. I wanted to know, in your acting career, was there a acting job, a particular performance that you're proud of? I didn't do too much acting. The reason I got into a school play was because I was trying to be a smart aleck and cut through the gym. And I knew I could get detention, but I was like, whatever. And then when I got caught, I was like, oh, I'm here for an extra part. And what ended up happening was I played a rabbi in a concentration camp. I didn't have time to memorize the lines. I didn't practice. They dressed me in the garb, and I came out with the scroll and read my line. But what happened that has stuck with
Sure.
me, and I felt bad about it because I gave it on my own. I was like, hey, I'm acting. I got to do my best. I actually had a survivor of the Holocaust walk up after the second performance, crying and saying, "Thank you. You did that so beautifully," and regaling horror stories.
Wow.
And it was one of those things. It's like, you don't know how far your performance goes, and I wish I was able to take a little bit more ownership in my performance, like I have with the YouTube and conducting these interviews. I wanted to know, you've been on Sons of Anarchy, you've done a bunch more. Everybody remembers the Entourage scene where you're being a good guy. I thought that was excellent acting. I didn't know why he was mad at you. But is there a particular performance you've done where you felt like, I really gave a wonderful performance, and this is what I would show my acting teacher that I sat with?
There's been a number of performances that I've done in the adult arena that were, I mean, as good of an acting job as you can get, and as good of a role as you can get. There was a movie called Fighters, and in that role, I basically play a father to two daughters, and he's got his past. He was a boxer, but he's now since not one anymore. He's, I guess I want to say, got some problems with alcohol abuse and stuff. So he's raising these two daughters. He's got some problems with alcohol. He's got a history of fighters in the back. And one of the things that took place was his wife, the two daughters' mother, took her life in this story, which was strange because when I first got the script and I got to that scene and I read it, I was like, wait a minute, what? Did someone know that I have something very similar story? So I kept it to myself, and we got on that set that day, and we started to film this scene. And when it came time for me to deliver these lines in this performance, it was like a floodgates. They just opened up, and my reaction and the delivery of the lines and the performance of whatever, for me, was just so close to home, and like, wow, that was so amazing. And everybody, once we shot the scene, and the results of the script and the dialogue happened, and there I was, a crying mess. They yelled cut, and everybody, there was like this silence on set, looking at each other like, what just happened? And I said, they said, are you okay? I said, yeah, I'm fine. And then I pulled the director aside and said, hey man, were you even aware of what I experienced in my life and how this paralleled that in the script? And he goes, no, I had no idea. I said, well, that's what took place. And he goes, oh my God. Unfortunately, at the time, the way they were shooting it, it wasn't my single, it was the other person's. So they only got the second camera angle of the performance, which was a shame. And he goes, can you do that again? And I go, well, I think I can, but because we missed it. I'm like, oh my God, but again, in any performance I do, I try to be as good as I can and really prepare for it. And, without getting too without getting too invested in it, because really at the end of the day, we're just pretending. We're playing cops and robbers as kids. As an actor, I try not to get too, sure, that's what they call it. It's acting, right? You react, or you do. So I try not to get too in depth about it. Still, it's just the performance we're doing. Some actors, I guess, and again, nothing to take away from them, but maybe they I don't know, maybe they think too much. Just do the role, do the thing, I don't know if that's a good answer.
It's a fabulous answer. Because I do have to ask you, only because the topic keeps on coming up, and the one I've had a friend pass to suicide. We should have put a trigger warning for everybody at the beginning of this movie. But I constantly think of Cagney
Yeah,
Carter.
of course.
I remember I was in school. I woke up and I saw a post, and I was always reaching at time. I was reaching out to everybody, and I was like, you know what, I should reach out to her, and I didn't.
Sure.
And of course, you don't know what would have happened, what would have. But I wanted to know for you, you know, when somebody comes to you with that problem, when people are dealing with it, how do you get them to cope with that? Hey, this is a temporary problem, because you've had some stories where you did get them on the other side. You did get them to stay with us, and for people that have never experienced or been in it or even touched it to a little bit, it's very hard to conceptualize the pain that person's going through in their head. I just wanted to know, what is your approach for somebody that is dealing with that? How do you walk them through it?
Certainly by no stretch a professional, but I can relate just by being a human and having been in those moments of desperation. Try to just encourage and say that these are just moments that you're feeling these at this at this particular juncture. And it could be, I I explain to people that I feel like I live on a merry-go-round, and that's probably not a bad uh, description. Is some people may feel the same way. It's like some days are good, some days are bad, and that's just natural with life. And how do I try to walk someone through that or encourage them? It's just just be there and just listen. Sometimes you don't even have to talk. You just be in the company of someone. Uh, but encouragement and you know uh, trying to convey to someone that, like you said, it's just a temporary moment that you're feeling this way, and nobody wants to do a permanent. They say it's a permanent solution to a temporary situation, and what also is interesting is, as a person who suffers from depression and certain things, I've said this before, you're not killing yourself. You're trying to kill what's hurting you inside, but the end result is you're no longer the host for that thing. So I guess just to put yourself in those shoes. Like I said, I've had people say, "Oh, I have these thoughts," and I'm like, "Well, it's natural, I guess. You have these thoughts, but you got to work through these things, and you got to find things that make you happy, even small little things, and you got to live sometimes minute to minute, or hour to hour, or sure, they say you got to live day by day. It's one day at a time, and it's true. But another thing too is that if you want, you got to break it down even to moment. Like minute to minute. What are we doing in this minute? Okay, let's find something that we enjoy. Let's find something that keeps our minds away from that destructive thought. Because one of the things that you do is, when someone does take their lives, unfortunately, they end the pain for themselves, but they transfer that pain to other people, which is unfortunate, because now those other people have to live with that pain. So uh, maybe sharing that concept to someone and saying, look, you you may end the pain for yourself, but you're only giving it to other people. How do you feel about that? Maybe that's enough for them to go, wow, I never thought of that. And help try to sway the way they're feeling and stuff. So again, I'm not a professional by any stretch. I only have my experiences with surviving suicide from a member of my family doing it, and me living through that, and having had my own moments of of darkness where I thought maybe this is the answer. It's not, and again, you had mentioned that you had some of experiences of yourself. So
It's a very tricky subject, but what is always great is just having somebody to talk to. Again, good sir, you are the motivator of the century. That common storm, like the Dave Murray of Iron Maiden for the adult entertainment. Just like, you know what? You should try that. It's like, why didn't somebody say this like 10 minutes ago? What the, what the hell? I wanted to know, has there been a person like that for you? Has there been a person that has always been someone you could confide in, or somebody who's been there on the intimacy level, maybe not the sexual level that we both crave from a significant other, but I have extremely good friends that I am a terrible friend no matter what I say. I have done things in the past, I'm like, yo, I would have cut myself off too, and they have continually protected me, they've gone out of their way for me, and like clockwork, every Saturday or a particular date, I call them to annoy them, and they've never not picked up. Is there somebody like that that has been a rock for you, kind of like how my friends have been for you?
absolutely, I've been blessed to have a number of them. One in particular was my friend Marcus London. He and I met each other on the set in 2004 when I first started. He had started the business in the UK and came over to the States here, and then we met each other working on a set. And ever since then we kind of hit it off and became tremendous, really good friends, and made a lot of great movies together and worked on a lot of projects. And he's always been there as a motivator and a mentor, I guess, if you will, and someone to tell you, hey man, you got to keep getting up. You fall down, and it's been reciprocal because he's dealt with some stuff himself, so we can always kind of be a thing to lean on for each other in that respect. So, and of course, I got some other friends, not as close, but or that I've lived with as closely as I've physically lived with Marcus for years, in certain settings and stuff, and again work together. But Marcus, he's a big rock for me there. So,
Which makes sense. You're a rock star, good sir. I do have to ask a three-parter. You've mentioned three places that are very close to me. Philadelphia, 100%. Tampa, definitely had some crazy moments in Tampa, and just New Jersey. I was wondering if you could pinpoint three fond memories, three quick little flashbacks from those places that you thoroughly enjoyed, because the history, up and down the state of New Jersey, man. I can't say pick out Vineland versus Clifton. You have the full rapport of the state. I just want to know if there was any really fond memories other than for Tampa, at least when you guys were filming Pirates. Any particular places that you still hold dear?
Predominantly the Jersey Shore as a young kid, going to the beach on the weekends, riding motorcycles and visiting Philadelphia and different things back those days, dancing, and those moments were really fun. As far as Tampa, my father's lives there, so when I get to go to Tampa to visit him and have time with him.
You mentioned in other interviews that now you're doing things that elevate your soul. Elevate the soul. I love that phrase. Trying, and even trying. I'm just sitting here. I ain't elevating, because then I think like, oh, I'm, getting out of the body, and now I'm wandering around. What do you think for you now, since you're wondering what's next and you are trying to get these new projects off the ground? What do you think is something that, as a hobby, not so much a passion project, but just something to try that you haven't been able to do? What is something like that? Like, some people start doing jujitsu, some people like us start playing music way more. But was there something just out of curiosity, like jumping out of a plane, that you thought, like, you know what, shit, it's a one-time thing. You don't get you could fly a plane without getting a pilot's license. You just do it with the dude, and it's like, oh, I had a lesson. Is there anything like that to elevate your soul? Or is there anything that you're saying, like, no, I want to focus on this to get to that lifting?
What comes to my mind instantly is the guitar. And how I don't want to say close I was with Eddie, but how close I managed to get with him in those brief moments. We were friendly, but it wasn't like we could call each other up and hang out. It just so happens that life presented me with these opportunities in succession to spend time with him. So now I chose to really get back into music and play the guitar, and that's kind of how I guess in some capacity I have a way to have a bit of a conduit to him to learn his music and try to learn his songs and stuff and just have a little escapism from life, turn the guitar on, stick my headphones on so I don't bother anyone else in the vicinity. And just do that. And then second, I guess, would be looking inward, and really start having more of, I guess, better conversation with myself rather than negative conversation. We tend to do that, but and then health and fitness, still getting out there, even if it's walking in the woods. Uh, I like I said, I enjoy the company of others. What helps my soul is encouraging and uplifting and being kind and thoughtful and to others. I wish I could do it more. Like I really wish I could get into a position where I could, you know, uh, from a financial standpoint, help others, because it's unfortunate at the end of the day, we all need money to live and thrive and do those things. And it's not the only thing, but it helps make life a little easier and take some of the burdens off of us. So, I would love to get to a place financially where I could share and take away some of those burdens from people.
I always think of Tony Robbins. I had a realtor I worked for, and his wife does that type of coaching. She teaches the
Sure.
coaches to coach, and then there's that person that helps people motivate. And it is a legitimate business field. I was wondering if that was something you'd be comfortable trying as well,
Sure.
because Tony Robbins is a crazy dude. They're like,
Coaching?
it's whatever, but you can make it happen. And I was like, damn, yes I can. I don't care if I need $1 million. We're gonna, I always thought you would be a wonderful coach in that aspect. Has anybody approached you for that idea since you've always been like that?
No, I want to say maybe you're the first. Uh, I mean, maybe not the first in terms of someone would suggest you're a good motivator and you're a good. Uh, you could potentially coach. So it's not that I've heard that a lot, but I've heard that I got a real positive attitude and I have a way of uplifting and helping people, which is funny because I feel like when I'm not, I'm such a I'm such a pessimist and such a whatever sometimes that I guess we're better at dealing with other people's problems than ourselves. So, you know, we have our own problems and go, oh my God, this and that and this and that. If I could only coach myself, I'd be in a far better place. But, how would I coach someone else if I can't coach myself or something? So I've had those ideas, and I think maybe that's kind of a therapy in itself is coaching someone else because you benefit from that.
But it's like when you do something to help somebody else get there and make their life better, it's like you're completing a portion of your job. Um, it's a feeling of like,
Yeah, yeah.
I've felt that, and I'm so happy I could take my pain and make it better for you. I always end these on the most important question: what's the best piece of advice that comes readily to mind? Sometimes people take us to the side and their joke is like, hey man, is the fucking you're getting worth the fucking you're giving? You get other people that go like, hey, let me tell you something serious. And it seems so simple, like brush your teeth. But then the connotation of how keeping your oral health and heart and all that. I wanted to know if there was ever a moment somebody said something and just time and time again, may not have been every day, but they said something to you, any field, any situation, and it's just like, you know what, I really do appreciate that wisdom.
Well, I guess it would be whether it's coming from, you know, I can't. I look at Rocky as a not a real person, but in the movies, I think I can really relate and respond to his inspiration and encouragement. I guess it would be Sylvester Stallone or something of that nature. It's just you gotta just keep getting up and you gotta keep getting up. And I've been doing that, as much as I may not give myself credit for. I've been knocked down so many times and just got to keep getting up, Uh, if I could give someone advice, I would say try to notice when you're happiest and dissect it and be aware of what just made you happy. What was it that took place just that brief moment that made you smile or made you happy, and try to do that over and over again and get into that place and that energy of your brain and your heart and your spirit to do that. Happiness is like fleeting. It's something we pursue, and that's why they say it, pursuit of happiness. Happiness isn't all the time. I feel like I live a life of 50% happiness and 50% sadness. It's unfortunate, but that's just what I have in my moment right now. I bear some sorrow, sometimes more often than the happiness parts of it. But the sorrow is kind of like, you're driving through a bad part of town. Eventually it'll get to the nice countryside and be more of a pleasant view. So you just hang on long enough, and that'll go away, and you'll be back to a brighter moment. So, and then when it is brighter and more friendlier and happier, take it in, man. Fill your pockets up with it. So when you go through that darkness, you got some reserve happiness in your pockets that you could pull out and look at and get you through the darkness to get to that next happy section of your life, So
I'm happy having a conversation with you.
And try everything.
Try everything. We're gonna do that one. Try everything.
Yeah. Of course, within reason,
Oh, hold on. I gotta change the notes now. Hold on, within reason.
Fail as many times as you have to, because success is built on failure. So, and don't let failure stick with you like it's just something that took place. Learn from it and do it again. Try again.
That's it. We're calling Stallone. He's gonna do a biopic on your life, man. It's gonna be guns. It is going to be guns, man. It's gonna be Stallone. Man, that guys, that was beautiful. But before we let him go, I keep on telling him two more questions. But now I really do have to ask. One, okay. Did Eddie show you his hip in the fridge? That is the weirdest story I've heard about him. Showing people his hip. And I'm like, what the hell?
No.
Okay.
Because one of the stories is that when Michael Nin met him and stuff and kind of came into his life, he tried to help him, and he did. And they started to clean out the house and really help get himself back on a good path. Someone threw the hip out that was in the refrigerator. They threw it in the dumpster, and he fucking went crazy, like, oh my God, where is it? But apparently he went back in the dumpster and dug it out, found it. So it's funny because when I had my hip done, I wanted to do the same, but they wouldn't let me have it because it's biohazard or something.
Yeah, legally, that's pretty bad. You should have had that hit. And then, is 11 really your lucky number? You said it during Pawn Stars, and I was just like...
Let's just say it's a special number to me, and it signifies... It was the date my mother took her life. So whether someone would say that's a lucky number or unlucky number, it's a special number for me. So since then, I've made it just a special number for me. It's this thing, 11, 11, 111. It's all angelic, apparently. from a numerology standpoint.
A song called 1111 by Dinosaur Pileup. You're gonna love playing that on the Jackson, sir. I can see you. You are going to enjoy it. But
oh wow,
ladies and gentlemen, I digress. What an intense, powerful, and humbling experience I just went through. He was mentioning about smiling and enjoying the moment. A lot of these kind of fly by, and here he is giving me so much time. So first, I got to say thank you to Tommy Gunn. Then I got to make sure you go buy his new book. Man, Tommy Gunn Unloaded is available now on Amazon. You can get it at your local bookstore. I'm telling you, Barnes & Noble's got it. But guys, it is truly a masterpiece that will walk you through so many different experiences in the human condition that everybody can relate, and I guarantee everybody should read it. You should also go check out his documentary, out now, fans only. They're working on episode 2, episode out 1 now as of this moment. You have to check these things out. Go follow him on Tommy. It's going to be the with 2 E's, Tommy Gunn on IG, Tommy Gunn XXX on Twitter. And guys, do not forget, I'm going to say it again, go follow this man. Go buy the book. It's fantastic. Sir, thank you so much for the wisdom and your time and just being an overall wonderful presence. I cannot express my sincerest gratitude. Thank you, sir.
Oh, thank you so much, John. It was wonderful. I plan on staying in touch with you on a personal level, and just from time to time I'll pop in and see how life is treating you.
I'm much obliged, sir. I appreciate that. And everybody else, be smart, be mindful, work on your guns. Go buy the book, Tommy Gunn Unloaded. Learn how to work out too. And as always, Ninja out.
Woo, baby, you listen to John the Ninja. Oh, your ears are about to go on a vacation. John the Ninja's got what you need.